Hey guys, sorry I didn't realize I still had the picture up. I know I started a little bit late today. Sorry about that. I had an extended Cub Scout meeting and you got to do what you got to do as parents. So, with that being said, today's topic is self acceptance. And a lot of people struggle with this, myself included. It gets a little bit difficult because there is a fine line and a difference between self esteem, self acceptance, so on. I'll put it up for you so you know what I'm talking about here. You have your self acceptance, which is how you accept yourself. It should be high. You are enough for yourself, but we don't all believe that. Then you have your self esteem, which is how you see yourself, which should be balanced, neither too low or too high, which basically just means you know that you're worthy or capable of doing anything. And then you have self improvement, which is where you do accept yourself already. You just strive to be better than you are right now. So, just so you get a little tidbit of the difference between those, I do have some points I want to make. I did go over it in the live on my Instagram earlier today, but for some reason, my episode for last week, it would not allow me to post. So I'm still working on that. And the first one, if anybody does not know, the first stream that I did, I posted the link to join live. That was my mistake because some situations had happened. So beyond that, and with that being said, I want to put up a couple little things that I found here and read them to you guys. Happiness occurs when you forget who you're expected to be. Just that first line right there, who you're expected to be. Beautiful. And what you're expected to do. Happiness is an accident of self acceptance. It's the warm breeze you feel when you open the door to who you are. And that's exactly what it is. Self acceptance basically means that you accept who you are as you are, light and dark, no issues with who you are. Maybe I should word that a little differently. You could have issues with who you are, but you don't let it affect you and you still love yourself no matter what. We all have room for growth. If you don't believe you have room for growth, then you need a little more growth than the rest of us because we all have to start somewhere. Where we start with this is to accept how we are, who we are, and what we are at face value. That means exactly what I said, face value. It means you know that you can be kind of crappy sometimes, but you know that you're great too, and you love yourself no matter what. So let's get into it. When we go into our topic for today, self-acceptance, I explain what that means, but the actual definition is an individual's acceptance of all of their attributes, positive and negative. I call it loving your light and your dark. Same thing. It just means, again, you love yourself as a whole. So, how can you improve your self-acceptance? Well, there's a lot of different ways. And I think a lot of the trouble that we have is acknowledgement. We don't recognize that there's a problem, or we don't want to see that there's a problem. And that is, you can't go anywhere if you don't see a problem. You know, they tell you when you go into meetings for interventions, they tell you that the first step to moving on is acceptance. Same thing. If you don't accept yourself for who you are, how you are, even if that person isn't all that great, you can't grow because you're not accepting who you are as you are. So, with it being said, how do we improve on this? Well, to start, we can start by being as kind to ourselves as we are to others. You wouldn't go up to somebody on the street and say, "You look like shit today." So why are you telling yourself that? I look in the mirror every day, ladies and gentlemen. This is no cap, no bull. I look at myself in the mirror every day and I tell myself, you are a hard 7 out of 10 on a bad day. And you know what? Yeah, I know I'm a 10 out of 10, but I like to be humble. So you don't want to be conceited. That's too much. 7 out of 10, I feel like is fair. But moving on, see your mistakes as an opportunity to learn. You shouldn't beat yourself up when you make a mistake. How many of us are guilty of this? Because I know that I am, where we lie awake at night and we're staring at the ceiling and we're thinking about that one time in third grade where you bent over to get a pencil and you farted and everybody heard it and laughed. Like, come on. Why do we think about these things? Why does our brain trick us into thinking that we need to think about these things now and that it should affect us? Does it really? No, because who cares about that one time in third grade? But in our heads, we're beating ourselves up. And obviously, I use like a stupid memory, but these are more severe ones too. Like a social situation where you could have done better. Maybe you missed out on an opportunity because you didn't handle yourself properly. We beat ourselves up for that, especially people with mental health conditions. Myself, I'm a borderline. None of my conversations are my best work. But guess what? I acknowledge that. And most importantly, I forgive myself for it. Forgiveness is big on self acceptance. You have to learn to forgive it. You want to also notice positive things you do, no matter how small they are. If you washed your hair today, congratulations. Celebrate it. You washed your hair today. You know, not a lot of people could say the same. Depression season is here, people. We are in the cold months, the snuggle weather. Seasonal depression is going to hit hard this year. Just because it's been a long year. We're kind of starting to move out of COVID, but like not really. No one's really sure. It's just a hard time for everybody. And especially businesses trying to pick back up after COVID. Everybody's stressed. So seasonal depression will be really high. Remember to treat people with kindness, but remember to treat yourself with kindness too. So again, notice the things you do well, no matter how small they are. Those are your strengths. So we'll get into that actually right now. 10 ways to practice self-acceptance. Okay. Number 1, embrace what makes you unique. I have a gap. I used to hate this gap, and I had 2 extra fangs. I used to hate my mouth. I would never smile in pictures because I hated it. It was weird and gross. People made fun of me for it. Now I love it. I'm smiling big because guess what? That's what makes me unique. I love it. So notice those little things about yourself that make you unique and learn to love them because they are a part of you. And there is no one else on earth that has or can do what you can. So next, let go of what you can't change. If you can't change it, you need to move on. Now, that's not to say that if it is something that you can change, you shouldn't do everything in your power to try to improve your situation. But if you can't, you have to let it go. Otherwise, you'll be doing what I said earlier, laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, hating yourself. And that's anxiety. We're not going to do that to ourselves anymore, people. Let go of what you can't change. Next, identify your strengths. We all have them. If you have to sit there with a notebook and a pen and write down all of your strengths for you to see it and love yourself and accept it, do it. Do it. I always say, too, to write those negative things down, too, the things you're not so good at and want to work on. But if you're just getting into self-acceptance and you don't love yourself like I love myself, because trust me, no one loves me more, I would suggest to stray away from that because it's just going to stress you out. So start with the positives, start with your strengths, write it down, look at it, memorize it, believe it, okay? Next is to set goals. It's easy to feel like you are sitting in the same place if you're not setting any kind of goals, even if they're small goals. Go food shopping or clean out the fridge or, do the damn dishes. I say it every week. I'll say it again. I hate them. They're a bane of my existence, but it's a goal. Now, when I say this, I want to make a little side note here. When you make goals, make them realistic, okay? The biggest problem we have with setting goals and why people don't use this mechanism or this tool is because we set goals that are way out of reach. Way out of reach. So if I want to clean my house this week from top to bottom, I'm going to give myself all week to do it. I'm not going to say this house can be done in 3 days. Now, if you're a person who works better under pressure, do it. But if you're a person who has anxiety, try to stray away from that. Or if you set that kind of deadline, set one that's more than you need. So I'll say, yeah, I have a week to clean my house, but I will finish the bathroom within 3 days. I know I'm going to finish the bathroom within 1, but I feel better about myself when I finish things ahead of schedule. It's kind of like when we have the GPS in our car and it gives us like an ETA and we're like, challenge accepted. Same thing. It makes you feel better about yourself. And when you feel better about yourself, it's easier to celebrate those accomplishments. And that's next. Celebrate the little victories, people. Like when you beat that GPS, that challenge was accepted, that challenge was beat. I beat it by 2 minutes, Celebrate those accomplishments. Even if it, again, was just you washed your hair today, or you got out of bed, or you went food shopping or cleaned out the fridge. Celebrate the little things, because by celebrating the little things, it makes the bigger things even better. So, next is to plan ahead. And as a Virgo, this is one of my favorite pastimes. When you plan ahead, it makes things less stressful. When you are stressing and doing things last minute because you procrastinated, you tend to beat yourself up for it because you're like, if I had just focused, or if I had just, if. I hate that word, if, because it's something that's irrelevant. If it's an if, it's either in the future or it already happened. And there's nothing I could do to change either. So I try to stay away from that word, if, or maybe. I hate the word maybe. It's a yes or no, people. It's a yes or no. Maybe is a no to me. So just saying. That's just a little side note. But planning ahead. If that's not your strong suit, then get with somebody who it is their strong suit. You got a comment coming in. Hey. By planning ahead, you're taking that burden off of yourself. And again, you're not stressing. You know that everything is taken care of. Let's say you're going away for the weekend. You're not going to stay up the night before saying, did I pack all 27 pairs of panties that I need for this 2-day trip? No, because you already did it. You already planned ahead. So next is to think positive. This is one that I struggle with constantly. But again, we all have room to grow, right? Thinking positive is going to help you with your self-acceptance, because if you're not thinking negatively, you're not going to feel negatively. Nobody wants to be around somebody who's negative all the time. I'm sorry, but it's a fact. Nobody does. So start thinking positive. When you think positive, positive will come to you. It's not even manifestation. It's just energy. It's just how it works. When you do unto others, is that whole thing. Same thing with energy. Think positive, it will be positive. If you think negative, it'll probably be negative. So the only time I want something to be negative is to starters, any kind of pregnancy or STD test. Okay, let's do that. So with that being said, let's look at the benefits of self-acceptance. Oh, we got another comment. Facts. Yes, big facts. Big facts. Moving on. What are some benefits? Let's look at it. Mood regulation. You're not flip-flopping all over the place because you're not beating yourself up and feeling like crap all the time. You are literally regulated. And that's a beautiful thing, especially for someone like me who has borderline. We need that. So it gives you that kind of stability. But also, it's a decrease in depressive symptoms. You're not going to be stressed out all the time. Like you put something off till the very last minute and now you're freaking out. Now you hate yourself. Now you don't even want to get out of bed. It's like, what's the point of doing it now? I know I'm not going to get done in time. Now you got that negative spiral, that merry-go-round, the carousel of depressive symptoms. You're not going to have that if you plan ahead and you're thinking positive. Even if you did wait till last minute, I still have this much time. I know I can get it done. I know I can. And believing in yourself. It's a big deal too. Next is a sense of freedom. And I'm going to put a quote in here. It is one of my all-time favorite quotes from one of my all-time favorite books from one of my top authors, Margaret Mitchell from Gone with the Wind. I will rep it till the day I die. And this is what I mean by sense of freedom. It's about expectations. Until you've lost your reputation, you never realize what a burden it was or what freedom really is. We spend way too much time worrying about what everybody else thinks of us, myself included. Up until this year, I wore a heavy mask, okay? And I got tired, really tired. It got to the point where that mask ate me alive, and I was not even me anymore because I didn't even know who that was. But by fully accepting who I am, good and bad, because let's be real, people, we're all kind of shitty in some way, but we still love ourselves no matter what, because guess what? There is always room to grow. So that sense of freedom is a beautiful thing. Also, your self-esteem. You are that shit. You may be a piece of shit, but you're that piece of shit, okay? It's accepting it and loving yourself no matter what. But I would like to make this little side note on here. Accepting and self-acceptance doesn't mean you fully like it. You don't have to like a situation. You just have to accept it for what it is. a truth, a fact, affirm. It's there. It is what it is. Like, I spilled a soda. I have to accept that I spilled that soda. I don't have to like that I spilled the soda, but I spilled the soda. It's acceptance. Then practicing gratitude, big deal. Big deal. Be grateful for who you are. Be grateful for what you are. Even those imperfections, even those things that are not so great. Beyond that, practice gratitude. Sorry. Be grateful for what you have and who you are and what you are, because there is always room to grow and you could always be better, but you could be worse. How many of us can look at the person that we were last year and say that we're the exact same person? I highly doubt any of us can. We've all changed in some way. So we have a lot to be grateful for, you know, other than we're alive, we're breathing, we're fed, those kinds of things. Those are the minimum. But if you have to start with the minimum, we all have to start somewhere. You can't jump on a ladder and be at the top immediately. You got to climb it rung by rung. Take it as it comes, people. Another important thing to recognize is that you are not your emotions. Now, for me, this is one that I struggle with too, because again, I have borderline emotions in me. We don't work very well, but I have an emotion wheel. That was my way of improving. Now I look at my emotion wheel, go, okay, I feel this and not this. So I don't have that confusion. That's growth. But you have to understand that when you get into heavy emotions, that you are not those emotions, that those are temporary. Okay? They will not stay forever. They are just temporary. And it's all up to you and how long they even stay in the first place. How much attention are you going to give to that, especially a negative one? Positive one, stay with it forever. But a negative one, you have to be careful. You have to monitor it. This one is very important too. And most people don't realize this one. You got to be a little selfish, people. Be for you. Why are we doing all of these things to help our friends be better and feel better and, just exist better? But we don't do the same thing for ourselves. Why is that? Because we don't feel like we deserve it. Because we don't accept ourselves and we don't love ourselves like we love them. Another thing I want to put in here, and I did say it earlier, but I want to make sure I put it in this one as well. We are not responsible for the way that other people feel about us or their emotions. We're not. It's hard to believe, I know, but we're not. It gets especially difficult when it comes to family and friends. It gets to a point where we are toxic to them and to ourselves. Here's how. How many times have we gone to someone who should be a good, sturdy support system, and they were not there for us? And we were mad as fuck, right? We can't be mad because our emotions are not their responsibility. We can't depend on someone else to make us happy again. That's something that has to come from yourself. Doesn't mean you shouldn't reach out for support. What that really means is to be aware that everybody has something going on, and the world does not revolve around you and your emotions. You have to understand and go with compassion. People are allowed to say no. Doesn't mean they don't love you. Just means you need to go a different route. So write that down because that is important. And you don't want to dump on your friends. Remember to take time when you are venting or you are struggling to let them speak too. We're all going through something. Okay? You got to be compassionate. You got to be selfish, but not too selfish. And boundaries. Make sure if you're setting them boundaries, people, that you're holding to them. Because if you don't hold to your boundaries, you're not accepting or loving yourself. You're not. Because what's the point of putting a boundary up if you're not going to follow it or hold firm to it? You're wasting your time. And now you look silly. So, next is to let go of comparisons. We spend way too much time on social media, watching TV, watching movies, trying to figure out what we need to do to be more like them or have more money like them or look like them, whatever the case may be. But we don't need to because, like I said before, there is no one on earth who can be or is what you are or can offer what you can. No one. We are all here for a reason and they're all different. There's no two people that are exactly the same. Even identical twins are different, okay? So let go of those comparisons. Why would you want to be like someone else? They're not you, you know? Hard 7 out of 10 people. Remember it. Next, and this is important too, forgive. Forgive, 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 forgive. By not forgiving situations that may have affected you negatively or people who have done you dirty or whatever the case may be, you have to forgive it anyway. Doesn't mean you have to go up and say, I forgive you. You just have to do it for yourself. Because by not forgiving it, you're holding on to it. And the only person that hurts at the end of the day is you. So I know a lot of people were angry at their parents, for example, because they weren't raised in a way that they have self-acceptance or self-esteem or emotional regulation because they weren't taught those things and they feel disappointed or defeated in some way and angry. You got to forgive them, people. There is no guidebook to parenting to start, but also they don't know any better either. Maybe they weren't taught that way. If you lead with compassion and with forgiveness, life will get a lot easier. But don't forget that second part. Don't forget. You have to learn the lesson. Forgive and forget does not exist here. That is not a real thing. Okay? If you forget, you're not learning the lesson. And that is important for growth. You don't want to make the same mistake 3, 4, 5 times to get it right. I don't need to stub my toe on the same table 6 times to know I need to move it over a little bit to not do it again. Only got to do it once because that shit hurts. So, next, remember your value does not lie in what your body looks like. What you look like does not matter, really, at the end of the day. Like, yeah, it's great to look good, to feel good, to, hold on, I got a comment. Say it louder, a little louder. Yes. Your body and your value does not lie in how your body looks. Your value lies in how you treat others and how you feel about yourself. Because you're not valuable to anybody else if you're not valuable to yourself. Because it's obvious. Self-depreciation, things that we do, like smoking, for example. Doesn't mean we don't love ourselves, but that's a slow form of suicide. It's a punishment. It is an addiction at the end of the day too, but it started as a punishment or a fad to fit in, which goes back to that comparison. It's because you didn't accept yourself at that time or continuously. You don't accept yourself as you are. I like to call it accepting your light and your dark. So with that being said, I got a couple little things I want to put up here because I took the time to find them for you guys. So you can ride through them with me. So first one is the tools for self-acceptance. Instead of trying to fix yourself, honor where you are now. Don't wait for a hypothetical perfect version of yourself to exist. Okay? This is not a video game where you get better armor as you go, people. Okay? This is something you build for yourself. Set clear boundaries with people who don't value and accept you as you are. That's important. But what is also important is holding those boundaries as a reminder, okay? You got to hold the boundaries. Be firm with them because people will walk all over you and they will not honor them. Next, keep a list of things that you love about yourself to turn to when you need a reminder. Like me, I drew a picture of my titties in my notebook. I open my notebook when I'm feeling like shit. Boom, titties. I even have a canvas print of my titties on my wall just to remind me. I love me, period. Imagine yourself as a young child who needs love and acceptance. Would you treat your child the way you're treating yourself? If the answer is no, then you need to do better for you. And next, try not to criticize yourself. Period. I don't even like the next part. Try not to criticize yourself. We are not perfect, okay? When you do, forgive yourself. We're going back to that forgiveness. You do have to forgive yourself when you even beat yourself up. If you have to stand in the mirror and repeat what it says at the bottom, I am enough, then do it. Again, I look in that mirror every day and I'm like, you the baddest bitch I know. Anywhere I go, I say, I'm a hard 7 out of 10 because guess what? Unless I show people that I am worth loving because I love myself that much, they're not going to give a fuck. Period. That's when people start to walk all over you. Tidbits. Pro tip. So, moving on. Self-esteem versus self-acceptance because they are different. Self-acceptance relates to the self, yes, but self-esteem is your self-evaluation. This is you breaking down yourself. When it comes to self-esteem, you need to compare it to something else. But with self-acceptance, there's no comparison needed. You take it at face value. With self-esteem, it's contingent on your circumstances, and it's the same with self-acceptance. But with self-esteem, it's very fragile. With self-acceptance, you're very secure in it. Next, with self-esteem, it mixed effects on your well-being. But with self-acceptance, it's always positive. It's always a positive effect on your well-being. When you look at your self-esteem, there are outlying things that can affect it. When it comes to self-acceptance, there's no outlying thing that can really affect that because you accept yourself for how you are and what you are. Again, even if that's a little shitty. So, moving on, reflecting on your self-acceptance. These are questions, and if anybody wants me to send this to them, I can. These are questions you should ask yourself. Number 1, have there been moments when you found it difficult to accept yourself for who you are? When? Write it down. Look at it. Read it twice, 3, 4 times. Read it 5. Go over it for yourself. By answering that, you're going to move forward and you're going to grow. Number 2, what standards did you fail to achieve in those moments? And when you do write down what standards those are. Like, where are they? Social standards? Are they personal standards? Are they standards set by your family? Where are these standards coming from? It's important to write down too. Number 3, how would it feel if you were able to just let go of these standards and accept yourself for the way you are in those moments? It's powerful questions, people. It's a good reflection tool. I love asking myself deep questions. I don't always answer them because, well, that's tough. That's shadow work, people. But you get there. You can't grow unless, again, you hold yourself accountable for your choices, even if they're not the great ones, even if they are great ones. You should be writing down good and bad things that happen. How many times do we write in a journal or in a diary and we're just writing down the shitty things that happen? Why aren't we writing down the good things? You know? Got to focus on positive too. So here's some ways that you can talk to yourself a little bit better. Instead of calling yourself a loser, you can say, I noticed that I'm having the thought that I'm a loser. Or even more so, I noticed that I'm having the thoughts that I am not winning. How can I fix it? Or, I'm clumsy. Next, you could say, I sometimes behave clumsily. And that's the truth. You're not clumsy all the time. You're clumsy in those moments. Don't generalize yourself as a klutz for falling once or twice, you know? Or, I'm sad. You can say instead, I notice that I'm feeling sad sometimes. Recognize when you're feeling sad and recognize what triggers that. And recognize if nothing triggers that and you feel that way for a long duration of time, because then it may be time to see your doctor, talk to him about some therapy or something for depression. Next. This is what acceptance is not and what it is. Acceptance is not indifference. Acceptance is not liking or agreeing with something. It is not passive resignation, and it is not tolerance of injustice. But what it is a willingness to experience. It's tuning into your personal feelings. It's letting go of control, and it's taking responsibility. But I love that letting go of control. We are not in control of everything. We can't be. I'm talking to you, trauma, you know? We can't be in control of everything. We can't be in control of the way people feel about us. We can't be in control of the world or how we react to it. Or how it reacts to us. We can only be in control of how we react to it and how we let it affect us. So, important. I think I did that one already, sorry. These are about your perceived worth. And they're self-reflection questions. These I'm also going to post on the page when I'm done. So you don't have to write down and scribble real fast, okay? Number 1, in which situations do you tend to compare yourself with others? Number 2, in what areas are you most critical of yourself? Number 3, in which situations were you pretending to be someone you're not so that others would like and accept you? Then, when do you feel like your sense of self-worth increases? What is the thing you fear the most that people would say of you? And when do you feel most insecure? So, why these questions are important. We have to face our fears because not all fears are cockroaches and bugs and spiders and snakes. There are things within ourselves that we're afraid of, you know? Like people talk about their demons all the time. But do you even know what those demons are? Or are you generalizing your negative thought process in that way? Break it down. What is so negative? Put it on paper. Look at it. You have to face your fears, especially when it relates to yourself. Because we cannot spend the rest of our lives beating ourselves up when these are things that we can change and things that we can fix and things that we can grow. So I think that's really all I had for this because honestly, it's pretty cut and dry. Remember that I'll put it up again. There's a big difference between self acceptance, self esteem, and self improvement. Okay? Self acceptance is accepting yourself at face value. That should always be high because you should always be enough for yourself, no matter what, period. Okay? Even if you're a little toxic, because I'm a little toxic, you have to still love yourself no matter what. And that's a very big struggle with people with mental health conditions because we have symptoms that make us kind of shitty sometimes. But remember that there are also symptoms that come with mental health conditions that set us aside from everybody else in a positive way too, in the form of creativity or communication, things like that, emotional intelligence. They're positives. But your self-esteem can be altered. That's something that shouldn't be too high or too low. It should be balanced. You know, you're worthy and capable of anything and everything you put your mind to, but you have to put your mind to it. That's the thing. You got to put the work in. It's not something that's handed to you. Nothing is ever going to be handed to you. You have to get it for yourself. Period. The only thing that's handed to you is oxygen, and that's just because it's in the air. Okay. And the last one, self improvement, is you accepting yourself as you are, but striving to be better. You should always want to improve. How many of us can look back at the person we were last year and say that we are the exact same person? The answer should be zero, because we should be very far from the person we were last year, or at least baby steps. You should be different. I look back at the girl I was last year like, not my best work. Doesn't mean I don't accept myself for who I was then, but I'm improving and I'm growing, and that's what we should all be trying to do. So, got another comment. I'm really glad you picked this topic. I've been struggling with my value lately. Girl, you are a top tier bitch, okay? Top tier, period. And you're welcome for picking the topic. I'm glad it helped. But don't ever struggle with your value. Ever. You will always have value. Everyone does. And that's not to generalize or diminish yours, but you can't shine bright like a diamond if you're treating yourself like a rock, okay? Take the time to take care of yourself. And even if that means plugging in that vibrator, putting on some Savage Garden and lighting them candles, wood wick only, make sure you're taking that time for you. Boston, thanks for tuning in. We're actually almost done. I'm about to end it in a second because I really went over everything. If there's anything you guys want me to explain a little further, I can. I want to put my quote back up just because it is my favorite and it really pertains to this. Until you've lost your reputation, you never realize what a burden it was or what freedom really is. It's my favorite book, one of my favorite authors. It's from Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. It actually came into play, and I'm going to put this little story in here real quick. I went on a live last night, and one of the women in the live was an actress, and she had said, "What's a role you would really like to play?" And me being me, I said, I would love to play a Karen because I would nail that role. Period. I'm really good at being a bitch. So, period. I said it more to be funny, but somebody commented after and said, "Wow, you really want to get canceled within 15 minutes." Yeah, I would love to be canceled because guess what? Till I lose my reputation, I'll never be free. I'll always be stuck in that reputation. So, why do you think I use hoe on the go? The phrase hoe. Why do you think I call myself psychotic? Because I don't want to fit into what everybody perceives me to be. Hey, Eugene. I'm wrapping up here. We're about self-acceptance here today, which is accepting yourself as a piece of shit if you're a piece of shit, but knowing that everybody's a piece of shit in some way and you're that piece of shit. So that's kind of how I sum it up here. But going back to that conversation, I do everything I can to switch up all of the time to ruin my reputation. I don't want a reputation. The only reputation I want is being that bitch. That's it. Or a hard 7 out of 10. That's it. Until you lose that reputation, you don't realize that it is a burden to have to stick to the same behaviors and the same routines and the same expectations all of the time. That's where it turns into a mask. And that's where it becomes a problem. Because you're not you if you're wearing a mask. Something I dealt with a very long time. I had to hide how I felt to fit in to where I was. And it ate me alive, literally. It killed me inside until I tried it on the outside. And then I was like, why am I behaving this way? Why am I not accepting myself for what I am and who I am? Which is a top tier bitch. Because I was so accustomed to what they expected of me. I had to do that. But I realized, like, who the fuck said I had to do that? Nobody. Because I don't. And you don't. And nobody else does. We don't have to do anything that's expected of us. Because we're not responsible for how other people behave towards us, how they feel towards us, or their expectations of us. We're not. You're not responsible. The only responsibility you have is to yourself, and if you got kids and family. You know, immediate family. Not mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers. I'm talking offspring and significant other like wife. And even then, only the kids. So with that being said, that's really all I have for you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your comments. I'm glad I could help. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Some of these graphics that I did put up earlier with the reflection questions, I am going to pop into the group, or not the group, the actual Facebook page right after this. So remember, hard 7 out of 10. Write down your strengths, write down positive things about yourself, and reflect on it. Period. You should always want to grow. Remember that there are negative things about you. No one is perfect. And if you think that you're perfect, you might need a little more therapy than you think. So, again, that being said, I'm Christy. Thanks for tuning in to another Talk It Out Tuesday. And I will see you Thursday for How I Want to Go.